Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today in this session. So in the previous video, we've seen what function pointers are, we've seen how to declare them, how to initialize them, and also how to use them as callback functions as well. So today in this video, we are going to begin solving the tasks on this particular project. Okay, so make sure you go through the documentation here before you begin attempting the tasks. Alright, so let's move on. So this task here says we should write a function that prints a name. But before that, when you look at this is the header file we're asked to create for this. So it is not main.h. Take note, it is function pointers.h. So let me give you an overview of mine here. So this is the function pointer. So this, the header file. This header file contains all the prototypes to the function, to the task on this particular project. Okay, so I don't want to be switching from one file to the main file always all the time. Okay, all right. So what I'm going to do first is this. It says we should write a function that prints a name, right? So let's open the file first. 0name.c. So vi paste. All right, so as you can see, I have my Betty documented, right? So let's understand the question. So it says we should write a function that prints a name, right? So and as you can see, it takes in what? Two parameters. Right, it takes in two parameters. The first one is a pointer to a character called name, and the second parameter is a function pointer. And this function pointer takes in what? A character as argument. Right, so all I need to do here is simply this. This function pointer here is pointing to a function that is responsible for printing characters. So when you look at this, the function pointer takes in what? Character as argument, a pointer to character. Right, so it means f here will print whatever you pass to it as argument. So since I want to print a name, and this is the name I want to print, I will just pass it as argument to my f here. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is I need to check if name is not equals to null. That is the first parameter, if it is not equals to null, right? So if name is equals to null, right, or the function pointer itself is equals to null, which is f, right? So what shall I return? If both of them are null, what shall I return? I will simply just say return. Okay, I'll just return it, right? So else I will just say f and then I will pass in name. So what I did here is simply I just pass in the variables name to what? To the function pointer f, right? So it means that this f here, this function pointer here, is going to print whatever it takes as argument. Okay, the function pointer takes in a pointer to a character. That's why I pass in a pointer to a character to it. So it's going to print f. Sorry, it's going to print name. Whatever the value of name here, it will be printed by this f. Okay, so that's all. So let's run Betty on this. So Betty 0 print name. Yeah, so as you can see, Betty is fine. So let's create the test file. So copy and then so vi 0 main.c. All right, so paste. All right, so let's save and exit. So let's copy the compilation command. Copy and then paste. Alright, so as you can see, it has been compiled, so let's run the compiled file. So as you can see, we got hello, my name is Bob, and hello, my uppercase name is Bob Dylan. So we got the exact output here. Okay, so don't forget to add, commit, and push to a GitHub, and then you can run your checks. So now let's move on to the next task. So this task here says we should write a function that executes a function given as a parameter on each element of an array. Okay, so and this is the prototype, and where size is the size of the array and action is the pointer to the function you need to use. So what this is saying is that all you need to do is to create a function in which it will iterate over the entire element of this array, right? And for each element in this array, it will perform this action on it. Do you get it? For each iteration now, for each element inside this array, it will be passed as parameter to this action here, and then another function or another action will be performed on that particular element. Okay, so let's see how to do this. Let's open the file, vi. So sorry, vi this paste. All right, so as you can see, I have my Betty documented. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is simply this. We are to write a function that executes a given function as parameter on each element of the array. So the first thing I need to do is I know that I'm going to loop over each element of this array, right? So I'm going to declare a variable for my looping, and I'm going to call it I. So and the next thing I need to do is I need to check if the array is not null, right? And also the function here is also not null. right? So I will say if array is equals to null, or what is the function name action is equals to null, right? If one of this is equals to null, I will just return, right? I will just say return here. I can just return. Okay, so else what? Now I will loop, right? For I equals to 0, I will begin looping from the first element of the array, right? I is equals to 0. What should be the condition here? So this is the size of our array. Okay, this is the size of the array. So we know that we cannot loop to exceed the size of the array, right? So I less than size, isn't it? Then I plus plus. So this will loop over the entire element of the array. And for each iteration, we want to perform this action on each element. And as you can see, action takes in an integer parameter, right? Isn't it? It takes in an integer parameter. And our array as well takes in what? Integer. So all I'm going to do here is I will just call the action function. I will just say action. And then the parameter of action will be my array name and what? Index I. So what this means is for each iteration of I, go to what is in array at that index and pass it as argument to this action function. Do you get it? So this way I will get all the parameters of array passed to what? This argument action, sorry, this function action, and it will perform a certain operation on it. Okay, that's simply what this function is asking us to do. Okay, so let's test the function. For that, let's run Betty. Alright, so don't forget I already have my prototype. Okay, so I have this. So the next thing I need to do is just copy the test file. Copy the test file. Yeah, so this is task 2, right? So I'll just say vi1 main.c. Isn't it? So I'll just paste. Alright, so let's compile now and let's test. So compilation command is the compilation command. So copy, paste. Okay, it says signed and unsigned integer. Okay, I'm trying to compare a signed value, an unsigned value with what? An int, unsigned int. So this has to be what? Unsigned int, right? So this size underscore t you're saying is just like saying, it's just saying that this is an unsigned integer. Okay, so I need to declare my I as an unsigned int since I'm comparing it with what? A variable that is also an unsigned int. Alright, so let's run Betty. Sorry, we've run Betty already, right? So let's compile. So as you can see, it has been compiled. So let's run the compiled file. So as you can see, we got the exact output here, right? So don't forget, add, commit, and push to your GitHub, and then you can run your checks. So now let's move on to the next task. So this task here says we should write a function that searches for an integer. Do you get it? It's going to search for an integer. And this is a function prototype where size is the number of elements in an array called array. And CMP is a pointer to the function to be used to compare values. So this is pointing to the function that we are going to use to compare the values. So int index returns the index of the first element for which the CMP function does not return 0. If no element matches, return -1. If size is less than or equals to 0, return -1. Okay, so let's open the file first. We'll explain what this function is asking us to do. Sorry, this task is asking us to do as we begin writing the code. So open. So as you can see, I have my Betty documented as well. I'm doing all this things so that I will not be taking time documenting Betty and all this. I'm sure you by now you must have been familiar with all these things. So the first thing I need to do, I need to check if array is not equals to null and also if the CMP is not equals to null. So I'll just say if array is equals to null, right? If it is equals to null, we want to return what? And also if my CMP is equals to null. If both are equals to null, what should I return? Let me just return a -1. I'll just say return -1. Okay, why am I returning minus? Because the pointer, sorry, the prototype here is returning an int. I cannot leave it without any value here, okay, since it's expecting what? An integer value, right? So the next thing is if size is less than or equals to 0, I'm also expected to return a -1. So I'll just say if size, right, is less than or equals to 0, right? So what should happen? I will return a -1, right? So the next thing I need to do here is I need to loop over each element of the array, right? We need to loop over each element of the array. And for each element in this array, we need to pass it to this CMP function. Isn't it? We need to pass it to this CMP function. This CMP function is responsible for checking, right? You just look at the CMP is a pointer to the function to be used to compare the values. So the CMP function will be used to compare the values. Do you get it? So for each iteration of array, we will pass it to CMP, right? So I need to declare a variable for my looping. So let me call it I. So I'm going to use it for the looping. So here I'll just say for I, I'm starting from index 0. So what should be the condition? I less than size, right? We cannot loop and exceed the size of the array. So I plus plus, right? So here inside this for loop now, I need to pass in what? Another condition here. So when that function finds a match, it's going to return a 1. If it doesn't find a match, it's going to return 0. So I can set a condition that if this CMP, since it does the same thing as well, it's used for comparison, if CMP at array index I, what this means is simply for each iteration of I, pass in the element at that index to CMP so that it will be compared, right? For each element here, is it equals to 1? If it is equals to 1, it means what? A match has been found, right? If it is equals to 1, a match has been found. So what should we return? We need to return the index in which the match is being found, right? So in this case, it is what? I. So if I is equals to 0, it will check what is in index 0 of I, and it will pass it, it will check what is in index 0 of array, and it will compare it. Is it equals to 1? Is it equals to what CMP is pointing to? If it is 1, then definitely it finds a match. So it will return the index of what? Of the character that the match is being found. Do you get it? So that's what this is going to do. That's how it will keep doing. It will keep doing until it finds a match. Do you get it? If it doesn't find a match, this is what will happen. We are just going to return a -1. That's what the question says. The question says if no element matches, return a -1. Okay, so let's run Betty. Betty to print. Okay, to int, right? Let's see. Okay, it says no description found for return value. So let me explain the return value. Okay, yes, it's supposed to be returned. So this is going to be return, or shall I say return index of the matched character or a -1, right? So that's what the function should return. So let's run Betty. So as you can see, Betty is fine now. So let's copy the test file. Copy. All right, this is task 2, right? So vi to main.c. All right, so paste. All right, so we have everything here. So let me add this. All right, so now let's compile the program and let's see the output. So copy and then paste. So it has been compiled. So let's run the compiled file. So as you can see, we got the value 212, isn't it? We got the exact value. Do you get it? So that's simply what we need to do here. That's simply what the question is asking us to do. Okay, so don't forget to add, commit, and push to GitHub, and then you can run your checks. So we're going to stop here. In the next video, we are going to continue from task 3 of this project. So thank you very much. Till we meet in our next session.